Hi friends, Vincent here. This is Fearless in Rust, where we keep Rust clean and simple. Let's go. In today's video, we'll dive deep into structure login with a tracing and tracing subscriber crates. Observability is key to debugging and monitoring NPI performance. By adding meaningful logs, you will make your application easy to debug and robust to scale. Let's first see what we have so far on the logging side with the logging.rs file. This init function sets up our logging using the tracing ecosystem. Unlike the older log crate, tracing supports structured, context-aware logging, which is perfect for production system. So here, the first piece here is rolling daily. This creates one log file per day in the logs directory. That way, our server doesn't end up writing endlessly to a single file. Every 24 hours, a new one is started. Next, we configure an env filter. This lets us adjust log levels dynamically within environment variables. After that, WaveWriter sends every log's entry into our dedicated file sync, so nothing is lost. Then, WaveLevel ensures each event clearly displays its severity level in the logs. Then, we turn off the module targets with WaveTarget function to avoid extra noise. We also set a max level of trace. That's the most detailed level possible. But the filter decides what actually gets written. It means the system is capable of capturing everything but only emits what we allow. Finally, we disable ANSI colors with WeANSI function, so the logs stay clean. Then, there's a choice of output format. JSON logs are machine-friendly and perfect when you want to ship logs into something like Loki or Datadog, and compact logs are short and easy to ring during development. So, in short, this logger is flexible. It rotates file daily, adapts its verbosity through environment variables, and lets us pick the right format depending on whether we are debugging locally or running in production. Next, let's check out how the HTTP layer uses tracing for API requests. This TraceLayer comes from the Tower HTTP crate, and it automatically logs every incoming HTTP request and outgoing response. The call to TraceLayer new for HTTP sets up the middleware, and then you configure 3 key parts. First, make span with, create a span for each request. In other words, a structured log context that lives as long as the request does. Here we log it at the info level. Second, on response fires when the response is sent back, logging status code and latency. And then, on request, triggers whenever a new request arrives, so you will see logs like get API metrics. This gives us end-to-end visibility into each request lifecycle. When it came in, what path was called, and how long it took. By default, this doesn't include the request parameters, headers, or body data. That's intentional. Logging sensitive data directly called expose secrets. If we want more metadata, we have to attach our own context inside the handler. That's what we are going to do next. So now, let's look at how we riot tracing inside our telemetry handler. At the top, we have this part. This creates a span whenever we build the routes and prevent service from being logged. Because it's an IRC trait and not useful in logs. This is more about hygiene and observability. The interesting part is the handler. Here's what this does. Name gives the span a custom name instead of the function name. Skip service again avoids logging the service dependency. And fields declares structural fields on the span, source ID. We initialize it as empty because we fill it later from the query parameters. Inside the handler, we grab the current span. Then we inspect the param. This is the key ID. We read source ID from the query string and we record it into the active span. Once they are recorded, every log event inside this part automatically carries this field. We also keep source ID as an optional filter when calling the service. Then, in the happy path, right here, we log matrix count, and because we are inside the instrumented span, the log line now has source ID and matrix count, plus the usual HTTP span from TraceLayer. Now, let's look at a real observability failure that happens even when your tracing code is great. Let's say we start the server. So for this example, the server is already started. And we hit the matrix entry point. So I'm gonna do that right now. Okay. So you see something like this. Fetch metric, successfully. Everything looks fine, but here's the failure. All requests looks identical. Every request produces the same logs. Same span name, same messages, same structure, and no distinction between which source the matrix belongs to. And in a production environment with multiple nodes, server or API users, this is a silent, dangerous failure. You are logging activity, but not identity. You can correlate logs, you can trace behavior per node, and in case of an incident, you'll have no idea which source triggered it. Everything blends together. Now, let's fix the situation, without touching a single line of code. Call the endpoint again, but with actual context. So I'm gonna do that right now, just by pasting a source ID. Yep. Now your logs instantly become self-describing and traceable. Like you can see here, you get the source ID parameters. With just one small metadata field, we solve the identity problem. Every log is now correlated. Each request becomes traceable, and production debugging becomes possible. If I go back to my file, the fix wasn't code. It was understanding how tracing spans behave when context is missing. This is the moment where structure logging clicks. If a caller doesn't send context, logs are generic. But if a caller does send context, logs become meaningful. And that's why fields plus the function record from span is so powerful. It lets your log adapt to the information the caller provides. To summarize, we added observability to REST using the tracing and the tracing subscriber crate. You learn how to configure for structure logging and how to attach context like source ID and matrix count to logs. So, thanks for your time. Like and subscribe for every REST week. And drop question below, I reply to all. Stay fearless.